Hello, and welcome to my Crusader Kings 2 series, The Men of the North. If you're familiar with Crusader Kings 2, it's a game, or if you're not familiar with Crusader Kings 2, it's a game where basically you can play as basically anybody in Western Europe, all the way out to India, and in the direction of the sort of out towards Mongolia and China and the like, or Northern Africa, anywhere. So you can play as any of these different areas, and unlike other strategy games, you play as a dynasty. So when your character dies, you hopefully inherit as whoever their successor would be. So usually it's a patrilineal succession, so you would inherit as their son. Whether it's the eldest son or the sort of the most powerful male family member would depend on the exact inheritance laws that your particular area had, and you can change that. So the year that I'm going to start, and there are quite a few options in Crusader Kings 2 for start dates, and these have been added as DLC. The one that I'm interested in starting in is 769, and the reason I'm interested in that is not just to get extra playtime, but also to try and make what I would like to have happen more likely by being further back in time before history kind of set itself in stone. And the character that I have selected is the character I'd like to play, High Chief, or in reality a petty king, Owain of Strathclyde. And so Strathclyde, if you're not familiar with British geography, is this area here. So it sort of covers present-day Glasgow, but the center of this old kingdom, and this kingdom existed, so all of this is roughly in broad strokes historically accurate, that this kingdom existed in present-day Dumbarton, Scotland. And at the time, it was referred to as Altcleat. So Altcleat was the rock of the Clyde, so it's the Clyde River coming down here. And it was this volcanic plug right there at the mouth of the Clyde. And this kingdom existed essentially, into prehistory. So this tribe existed. I think it was referred to as Dumnonia at the time, when the Romans showed up. And it continued to exist. At a point, it was brought under Roman control when they got all the way north to essentially right along the northern part of, and you can't see my cursor, unfortunately, so I'll have to see if I can work into that later. But right here along the northern part of this Altcleat province and Lothian here. And the Romans got all the way up to that point, and they built the Antonine Wall, but then they ended up falling back within, I think, a century, back to Hadrian's Wall, which was further south. So this area, existed throughout all this time, was sort of brought under the Roman control for a period, Romanized to an extent, and then once again became independent. And it was out of that this kingdom of Altcleat, later referred to as the Kingdom of Strathclyde, because the Strath means valley, so the valley of the Clyde River. So this kingdom grew out of that. And at one point may have extended, down through Carrick, Galloway, Teviotdale, possibly even down into this Cumberland province. And I believe even had dominion over the Isle of Man, or in Welsh, which is what the name is right now, Ynys Manaw. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Mileage may vary with my Welsh ability. So basically, this kingdom existed, and one of the really interesting things about it to me was that, as you can see here, underneath the character portrait, the culture is Welsh. So that could be a little bit confusing. It's like, well, how are these people up here Welsh? Wales is down here. So Welsh is kind of, I think, a little bit of a historical misnomer, where it's sort of the mistake of taking the present day and putting it back into the past. Yes, they're Welsh, but the term that was used more commonly at the time were Britons. And I think the reason why they didn't want to say Britons was because that could confuse people. It's like, well, all these people are Britons, they're from Britain. But the Britons were not the Anglo-Saxons. They weren't the later day English. They were the they were sort of, I mean, I don't want to say the original inhabitants, but I guess sort of the original inhabitants of Britain. And the only reason I don't want to say it is because it was a pre-Celtic culture that, you know, made Stonehenge and things like that. But the Britons essentially were what became the Welsh. They were the people that were there when the Romans showed up. So eventually Britain became synonymous with Romano-British, these people that had been assimilated by Rome to varying levels of success before the fall of the Roman Empire, which I want to say was in like the 470s. But I mean, the legions had already left Britain before that. So basically, these pockets of the Britons continue to exist all the way through, you know, eventually until today. I mean, really, you know, the Britons continue to exist as Wales. But at this point in time, they existed in more places than just Wales. So the Cornish, you know, they, same type of people, basically. Eventually their language moved away from Welsh. So, you know, there's, you know, the Cornish language is different. It's very similar, but it's different, just like the Breton language. So these were also Britons who left when the Anglo-Saxons started to invade. So they came down here, kind of carved themselves out a chunk of Gaul, and still there today. So up here, I got really interested in this culture of, you know, this British Welsh pocket that continued to exist for so long up here in present-day Scotland. And I also liked it because it's a difficult start. So from a purely video game perspective, it's not an easy start, which can make it kind of fun or also incredibly frustrating depending on how things go. So I really want to make this work. My goal is to make Altcleat's kingdom come back. And in real life, they did have a resurgence after 769. They got some of, you know, their old dominion back, but then in, I think, the 860s, there was a Viking invasion, and almost unheard of. And in Crusader Kings 2, you have sieges all the time that last, you know, months. In real life, that didn't happen. Sieges were practically unheard of in the early Middle Ages, or the Dark Ages, but early Middle Ages. And so it was incredibly rare that you'd have that, and they ended up laying siege to Dumbarton, so Altcleat, for I think 4 months. And at the end of it, they basically took off into slavery all of these people that were there, and they ended up, you know, taking away the king of Altcleat and later executing him on the orders of I think the King of Scotland, or at least with his okay, or the King of Pictland. So a lot of political history there. But essentially, they did have a resurgence, and I think a lot of that had to do with internal squabbling within up here, so centered in Northumbria and Northumberland, so this Kingdom of Northumbria. And, you know, they, I think, had internal problems, you know, just like the Britons, the English had their problems too. So they ended up sort of crumbling up. And there was a resurgence until that time of the Viking invasion. The Picts, also, interestingly enough, they basically share a lot more in common with the Britons than they did with the Gaels. So the Gaels being the Irish. And linguistically, there's Gaelic, or there's Q Celtic, and there's P Celtic. Q Celtic is, you know, Irish, Scots Gaelic. P Celtic is Welsh, Cornish, Breton. And the Picts spoke P Celtic. They were British, they were Britons, they weren't Gaels, they weren't Scots. But they ended up being culturally assimilated by the Scots out of Dalriada, and here they all are also on the Western Isles. So at this point in time, there's a lot of cultural similarity there, but by the time that the Kingdom of Strathclyde historically went down the tubes, it was Scotland, not Pictland. So, with that sort of in mind, I'm going to try to make this work. I'm going to try to make the High Chief Oi no Strathclyde get his kingdom back, and then we'll see where it goes from there, and see if we have any chance at all of making this actually happen. Alright, so I'm going to save this. I've tried doing some previous attempts at it, and they ended in tears. Alright. Alright, welcome to Crusader Kings 2. Yeah. Basically, you can't hold an infinite amount of land. Your first goal is to have an heir. Like I said, it's a dynastic game. You can pause it, which we'll be making use of. And these are sort of the special features of the type of culture that we're playing. So I'm playing a Welsh Catholic High Chief. I'm living the dream. Tribes are settled but agrarian, so we're starting out as a tribe. We're not even really a feudal society yet. Gradually we'll work our way to that because it'll be beneficial for us. So we can hold tribal fort holdings without penalties, etc., etc., etc. We'll get into that. We're also Catholic though, so we're Christian, but just on the verge. We still have that sort of tribal pagan identity, and that's historically accurate, I think. I mean, at least in like the 400s, 500s, there were still complaints being made by, for example, St. Patrick complaining to this king at Altcleat, saying, you know, you're running around taking slaves in Ireland. You know, we're Christian. We shouldn't be doing that. All right. So the first task, because this is going to be rough. An important thing to note is, from a gameplay mechanic, Scotland has a de jure claim on Altcleat. And it's pronounced Altcleat because the U in Welsh is pronounced like an E sound. So they have a de jure claim on Altcleat, which makes no sense. In 769, Scotland has never existed. Or Pictland has never existed. They've never had any real claim to these areas. So that's just Paradox Interactive, the developer, deciding that they want to push history in, you know, the quote-unquote correct direction. So they give Scotland, or Pictland, this, I'll use the terms interchangeably because I'm terrible at keeping track of them. They're going to give them the opportunity to sort of push forward to what they historically had, which is going to be very bad for us because, as you can see, they're big, we're small. Even though the army differences are not drastic right now, they're eventually going to outnumber us within a pretty short period by, I think, about 3 to 1. But there are a few tricks that we can use to hopefully make that advantage a little bit less extreme. So they're a problem, because they're absolutely going to want to come after us. Northumberland is another problem, or Northumbria. They're right here. They're going to continuously try to fabricate claims. So what you can do is you can fabricate a claim on an area if you don't already have one. So, you know, for Pictland, they have a de jure claim because they, you know, according to the game, this should belong to them, or historically has belonged to them. For Northumbria, what they can do is they can just try to make a claim, you know, write down some documents, say at some point, you know, we had a claim on this place, and come after us. But that'll take a little bit more time. Further afield, don't have to be too worried, I don't think. I don't think the Mercians are going to be worried about us anytime soon, Wessex, etc. The Irish are broken up, which is very good from our perspective, because we could theoretically try to invade into there to get a little bit more power, a little bit more money. Further afield, the state of the world in 769, Charlemagne is just about to, hopefully, I say hopefully now, I'll explain in a second, hopefully begin his rise to power, where he's going to fight it out with his brother Carloman in the Middle Francia, and then end up with a unified Frankish empire. Which brings us to what we need to get done. So first of all, ruler unmarried. I will get to that in a second. Pick an ambition. I think, so there are a lot of different ambitions you can pick. I think getting married is a good one, even though I don't plan on getting married for a couple of years, and I'll explain that again also in a second. Focus, I think that having, so I mean, you have different focuses. You could focus on sort of pious things. You know, you could focus on learning, things that will help you with the church, might get you, you know, additional piety, things like that. You can focus on stewardship, work on getting some money, you know, really running your kingdom, what have you, more effectively. You can focus on intrigue, which opens up the possibility of, you know, assassinating people, seducing people, so forth. Yeah, I mean, spy on, free from captivity, seduce. I mean, you can try to assassinate people regardless of what your ambition is, or your focus is. The military one, so martial, you can hunt, which increases your health, which is great. You travel the realm making friends and killing off God's creatures. It's fantastic. And so, I mean, that's one thing you could do. Or you could go for war, and, you know, it opens up the dual action with people that you don't like. There's carousing, so you can invite people to wild parties, make friends that way. Family, so it's a little bit less diplomacy, but you can get increased fertility and health. And it also opens up options that if you have a big family, sort of help make them all become friends, which can be very useful in this game because you need heirs to carry on your line. So it's nice to have sort of, the phrase, the heir and a spare, have two sons. The problem is that they could fight each other. They might want, the younger son might want what the older son's going to get. So basically this could help create friendships that might make that a little bit less likely, might make your dynasty a little bit stronger. So I'm going to go for this because I think the diplomacy will help keep my people in line, keep my people liking me, and hopefully make it a little bit less likely that other countries, or I shouldn't say countries, other powers, other people around me will be a little bit less likely to want to hunt me down, do me harm, drink my blood, etc. So the choice is between family and carousing. I don't think we'll be getting married for almost 5 years, and you can switch it after 5 years. So I'm going to go with carousing and hopefully get a little more friends in the local area. So next, I can press de jure ducal claims. So I also have de jure claims on Carrick and Galloway because those are historically part of the Kingdom of Strathclyde. And yeah, I think the Isle of Man was also in Teviotdale. Maybe arguments could be made for it, but they just went with that, and that's what we're going to have to work with. Finally, we can grant some special minor titles, which I think is going to be a good idea. So maybe whoever's our best steward, Ednowine, who is Midas Touch, he's an administrator, he apparently has a little bit better skill in combat, that's cool. Administrator, ambitious, shy, kind, lustful, yeah. So we're going to make him our designated regent, which is going to improve his opinion of us, because we're giving him more titles. I think since he's already kind of in a position like that, maybe something like the Master of the Hunt or something could be good too, to sort of give him a little extra something. Really make him like us. We'll make our greatest warrior the Master of the Horse, which is an old Roman title, which is perfect because we're sort of, in a way, sort of these descendants of Rome in terms of, being the Romano-British, even though this area north of the Hadrian's Wall was not under Roman control as long as everything to the south. The High Almoner, might as well make our bishop that. Wait, I don't know if that's our actually. Okay, yeah, Argod. Okay. Argod is the least diplomatic guy you could ever meet. He has absolutely no ability at intrigue, but he is our court chaplain. The Cupbearer, who haven't we rewarded? The Spy Master. We do not want the Spy Master hating us. That is a recipe for disaster. Alright, so we've got all those guys taken care of. And I'll leave the commanders like they are for the moment. So now, oh yeah, this reminds me. So laws. We want to move tribal organization up. So right now, we can't revoke titles. If we increase our size, we want to be able to take titles away from people we don't like. And, yeah, so it might be a good idea to get that in right now. A little bit higher level tribal organization. We want to... Okay, that's... I think basically that's good. I mean, we could still grant commander titles, but we don't need to do that. So I would say that brings us to the question of marriage. So, I mean, the question that we have to ask ourselves is, how is this little tiny petty kingdom going to compete with places like Pictland and Northumbria and so forth? We need powerful friends. We need prestige. With prestige as a tribal nation, we can raise a tribal army, which is really good, because that'll be 2,500 men, which compared to what we can currently raise, we can currently raise 350 men. So that's a lot. And I mean, we compare that to, Scotland, for example. Let's see what they got. 662. So, I mean, they already outnumber us 2-1, but with that 2,500 man army, we'd be in a great position. And a great way to get prestige is to marry into a really powerful family. Now, historically, Owain of Strathclyde, the guy we're playing, probably wouldn't have been able to do this, but for some reason, in the game's mechanics, Charlemagne, or Carl, as I'm going to call him, because he's going to be my brother-in-law, he is totally okay with the idea of us marrying his sister. Now, his sister is 12, we're 20, that's kind of gross, but we won't be able to marry her until she's 16. Still potentially kind of gross, but less gross, certainly. So we can arrange this betrothal with her. Oh, what? He's not going to take it? What? His opinion of me is great, though, right now. I've never seen him not take it. I must have some negative effect. That's alright. That's fine. We can arrange a betrothal with his daughter, maybe? What? She won't go for it. This is horrible. Oh, I've never seen this happen before. Oh. Okay. Alright. We'll have to rethink this. Another option is Mercia. I think that they would allow the second oldest daughter. Yes, okay, the third oldest daughter. So we could get an alliance with Mercia, and that could be really effective. It's not quite as good, but it is something. What I'll do is maybe I'll just wait a couple of years and see if Charlemagne will go for it. Because unfortunately, he doesn't really have any boats in 769, so he can't actually help us. But the prestige we can get from the marriage could be really helpful. Alright, so I think with that in mind, so we're looking at, I think for her, so 4 years, so 773. So on 773, January 1st, we want to be checking in on that. And for him and his third oldest daughter, it's going to be 9 years, so we're looking at 778. Alright, so 773 and 778. We'll keep that in mind. Ramp this up. The other thing you want to do before you get started is set up a few things. Now, the Isle of Man has no liege, which is really good, because that means that if we go to war with them, we only have to worry about their allies, and at least at the moment, they don't have any. So, we're going to start fabricating claims. Try to see if we can get that. If we can start getting these pieces of our kingdom together now, so much the better. I don't think really training troops is going to help us much at all. I don't think organizing a raid could be great, because I think you have to raid people that are like a different religion and things like that, and we can't count on that. Everybody's Christian right here. So I guess we'll say train troops. Settling the tribe would be to change a culture to our culture, which is pretty useful, and it's something that you can do as a tribe that you can't do later as easily. You just have to kind of let time take its course. Oversee construction, we don't have any. Build legend. So this can be pretty good. Basically, you can have your steward out there building your legend among the people, increasing your prestige, and possibly even raising some eager warriors. So we need prestige anyway, which reminds me, I need to get a particular thing. And there's the possibility of getting these extra troops. Now, you have a year to use them, or you have to disband them, because if you still have them around after a year and you haven't done any fighting, then they'll start causing mayhem. So, get him in there. Scheming is almost always good. So having your spy master scheme in your capital means that you're going to notice plots against you faster. Right now that probably won't be as big of a deal. We're small, we don't have that many people in our court with claims and things like that, but down the road with a big kingdom, having your spy master keep an eye on everything in your capital can save your life. So we don't really have anywhere to send our court chaplain to proselytize. Everybody's Christian. We could build zeal to do sort of religious wars, but the troops will only work, I think, for religious wars. And again, everyone's Christian here, so we can't fight amongst ourselves just yet. We can improve religious relations, so I guess we can send him off to improve religious relations with the Pope. It's always good to keep the Pope on your side. So he gets to go on a vacation to Rome. And he doesn't seem happy about it, he seems surprised. That's fine. Okay. Alright, so I guess on that note, yes, the final thing. So we can get prestige, and basically this, as a tribal nation, we have slightly different rules than you would have for, the way things are done on the continent, let's say. So from the tribal perspective, we can still have concubines. So we can have a wife, and we can also have 3 concubines. And every nubile concubine we have increases the amount of prestige that we're getting on a given month. So I'm going to find ourselves some concubines. Let's see here. Take a concubine. Who do we have in our court? Okay, so we have this woman named Ilid. She's 16. She's a fortune builder, paranoid, temperate, envious, proud. Maybe she's paranoid that somebody's going to take her as a concubine. It turns out all of her fears were true. So she doesn't even get to say no, because it's 769 and the world is absolutely horrible. Alright. So we'll move on. We need 2 more concubines. So we don't have any more here. We could ask the Scots, maybe? Do you have any women folk? Oh, he won't send us his women folk. That's unfortunate. Alright, what about the Irish? Do you have any women? Oh, nope, not vacillation. Aha, Lan. Ah, he'll send her, okay. What's she like? She's an elusive shadow, brave, lustful, patient, and honest. Hey, alright. Well, she sounds perfect. Alright, so that's the second one. I guess another Irish concubine? Let's see. Neil. I wonder if this is Neil of the 9 hostages. If I remember this, I think he was like a high king and sort of the patriarch founder of the O'Neill family. Alright, tank concubine, maybe? Lucia. Aha! Alright, yeah, we'll go for that. She has a stutter. That's fine. Diligent, just, kind, gluttonous. Well, yeah. We all like the snacks, that's fine. Just more of her to love. Alright. So let's kick the speed up and see where we can get. Alright, Lucia's going to be made into our concubine. Thanks, Neil. Oh, and Lan. So I guess underneath this, yeah. Okay, I have no idea how to pronounce Gaelic names. Fichne? In any case, he's decided to accept my suggestion to make Lan into my concubine. I'm sure that she's thrilled. How does she like me? She does not like me a lot. Oh, because I'm slothful and deceitful. That's probably why Carl's not going to allow my proposal, because I'm slothful and deceitful. I'll have to work on that. Alright. My steward tells me that his efforts of praising my name... Oh, crap, I already have troops. Okay, well... Alright, I just need to remember. So the 21st of January. So before the 21st of January, I need to get rid of those guys. Otherwise, we're going to be in trouble. Now, I mean, potentially, I could take my army and these guys right now and go after Northumberland. I also have an ace in the hole where I can get some quick cash from Jewish merchants. So you can borrow 300 gold from the Jewish merchants, and I'll owe them back 350 gold in, I think, 5 years. Which can be a little bit rough. That can be hard to pay off, especially where I'm not making much money. I'm making 0.11 gold per month. So that's not the best deal, but, you know, we can make it work. But I could try to take these guys, and my guys. I think I have 300-something troops. Let me see here. Oh, wow. Wait, I have 713? Wait, is that counting those troops that I have right there? Current levy, 671. Are you serious? No. Okay, that is counting that. I can raise 370 men. So I could have 670 versus 1082. Yes, I would definitely need mercenaries. And I could get like 1,500 mercenaries, I think. The problem is that you have to pay something like 10 gold a month. It's not great. You know, I would rapidly be out of money, even at that. I could go tops 15 months, probably less than that. That's not enough time to conquer an area that's this big. And the worst part is you pretty much have to, you know, really beat them down into submission in order to just get one tiny province in Carrick. But it is what it is. So for the moment, we'll just let that go until January. Probably not going to press that right now. Oh, Scotland's already having some trouble. Trouble in paradise. Alright. So, wow, they're getting quite the army up there. So let's just take a peek at what's going on here. Revolt. Oh, okay. Well, revolt. Looks like the person's going to lose. It's in favor of the king. Well, alright. We're about to hit 30 minutes, so I think now would be a good time to make a stopping point for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I like to intersperse sort of everything with some historical notes, which I hope you find interesting. I think the gameplay is going to really speed up. I mean, early on, sort of the problem is, you know, you don't really have a lot going on because you're so tiny, so you have to really speed up time to get to the next big event, which is the polar opposite problem of having a big country where there's just almost too much going on, and sometimes too much going on at one time. But pretty quickly get to see whether or not this is going to end well or end incredibly badly. So thank you for watching, and I hope you tune in to the next video.